Hey everyone, it's Simon Hurley from Inklipse and welcome to another video. I hope you all are having a wonderful day. Now today I'm super excited because, well, if you haven't been living under a rock for the past year, you've probably seen the Gina Wreath Builder templates, and I was kind of buried away designing products for my first release during this time when it released, so I didn't get a chance to use it back then, but I talked to Gina, she sent me some amazing products to work with in today's video, and I'm going to be incorporating the Wreath Builder with some of my stamps as well. So you're going to see kind of a fun take on it using some of her geometric designs along with my stamps to create some really fun cards. So if you have some of my products and Gina K's awesome wreath builders, be sure to pull them out for today's video and you can craft along with me. And if you don't and you want to purchase them, I'll have links down below to all the products that I'm using and sharing in today's video, links to multiple sources and pictures as well, so you guys can go shopping through those. And I do get a percentage kickback at no extra cost to you. It just kind of helps support these videos as a little bit of a thank you, and I really appreciate that. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so first thing you're going to want to do, this is the 4-inch wreath builder, so it's going to fit the larger piece of paper. I'm going to place it in the corner of my MISTI, and you could hold it down with magnets, but just to make sure that it doesn't move, I'm just going to tape it down here, and I just put 2 little pieces of tape to keep it right in place. Then I'm going to take my 4x4-inch piece of card, and I'm going to just fit it right into the piece, and it's just going to drop in right like a puzzle, and then I'm ready to start working. So once that's in there, all I'm going to do is take an image, and I'm just going to use this party hat from the Dudes 2 stamp set, and I can just place it wherever I really want on here, and then I'm going to pick up the lid of my MISTI and pick up the image. Now it'll pick it up because it's a little bit sticky, but I can just place it right back in there. You can use a magnet to hold it down too, but I find as you go with ink, it's not going to pick it up. So then all I need to do is just ink up my image. And I'm just going to show a really quick and simple one, but you'll see some more advanced ones later on in the video. So once I've done that, I've stamped that down. Okay, so we have our first image. Now, I want to rotate my piece of paper, and then I'm going to place it back into the piece. So there's other little grooves in here that's going to help you kind of line it up as well. So all I need to do then is ink it up, and I'll stamp it right down. And then what I'm going to do is again flip it and go right here. Plop it in, and again I'm going to keep stamping. And then all you need to do is continue doing this. So lift it out, flip it onto the opposite one, and then you can continue going. And this is just going to give you kind of a wreath of whatever image you stamped. Now, if you want the images a little bit farther apart, I started here. And this is just going to kind of give you a wreath of images of whatever you stamped. Now, if I want the images a little bit farther apart, instead of just moving it one time, I can move it twice. So what this is going to do is it's going to make my image a little bit farther apart from the last one. So let's say I just want 4 stamped images of these party hats. All I need to do is continue doing that. So instead of flipping it once, I can do 1, 2, and then line it back up in there, and it's pretty easy to just drop right into place. And then I can stamp it again. And if I hadn't had stamped these, there would have only been 4 images. But if I want to, I can easily go back in, I can flip that again and fill in my empty spaces to make that full wreath. And there we have a really simple wreath full of party hats. So now I can go in and color these in and finish this off to make a little birthday card. Of course, if you move these out a little bit further, they wouldn't overlap like they did in the center there. So it's all about placement. You can practice with your images before you even go onto your real card. So now that we know how this works, let's move on to some cards that we're going to create. Okay, so I'm starting out with the first Wreath Builder stamp set here, and of course you could use whatever images you want, but I love these sets because they have those circles in it, and also those images that are beautiful and sized perfectly to fit in the Wreath Builder, which I really like. So I'm going to take one of those circle images, and then one little tip that I have here is to make sure you get any air bubbles out of your stamp. This goes for really anything, but especially if there's a big space in it like this. So all I'm going to do is lift it up and get those air bubbles out and then press it right back down onto the MISTI. That's going to make sure we avoid getting ink onto those areas that we don't want to. So then I'm going to ink it up with Rosy Cheeks, and I'm going to stamp it down right onto my center of the cardstock. Now I'm using a piece of 4" by 5 1/4" cardstock here. I showed the square at the beginning, but then with the rectangle piece like this, that's like a regular card base, you can see how I move it around. I'm just going to move it like it's a regular square and just ignore that bottom portion. So each time that bottom piece is just going to hang off the edge, and that's going to be left empty, and at the end we're going to add a little sentiment in there. So by using that rectangle, you can just have a little bit more space at the bottom if you need. So all I'm going to do is have that flower that I lined up there, and then I'm skipping one of the spaces, and I'm just going to stamp the image down 4 times. So you can see, like I was talking about at the beginning, this leaves a little bit of extra space, and I like to do this too because then you can fit some more images in here as well. I'm stamping this down with Over the Moon ink, and then once I'm done with that, I'm going to line it up again at the first position, and I'm going to use Slippery When Wet ink. This is a little bit darker of a color, and all I'm doing is rolling it onto the edges. I'm not stamping it down on the whole thing, I'm just using the corner or the edge of the ink pad to roll it onto the edges of those flowers. And what that's going to do is just add a little bit of shading and dimension to those flowers. You can see it's really beautiful there. And I love doing that, even though it is the Wreath Builder and it takes a little bit of extra time, it gives tons of dimension. Then I wanted to share it's super easy to clean my inks off. All you have to do is go in with a rag with a little bit of water and you can clean it right off the MISTI, so it's no big deal if you get ink all over the place. So you can see I've lined up my next image into the MISTI, and then I'm going to stamp it down using some Rosy Cheeks ink. And now I'm doing this in all of the rotations, so there will be 8 images in the end with this, so I'm just flipping it into the next slot, and then I'm going to continue my stamping. And sometimes I like to test to make sure that the image is going to look good in all of the areas as well. That's a really great tip as well. Sometimes it looks good in one area, but when you flip it, you might not like how it looks in the next one. So if I didn't like it, I might have gone to 4 images instead of all 8. I'm just going to continue stamping this into place as I rotate it all around. And another thing about this is I butted that right up next to that yellow flower because I want there to be lots more room for other images. And that's another really great thing about these sets is that they have small little flower images, so you can fit a lot on one card. Then I'm going in with a little bit of Bee Sting ink, and again using that same image lined up in that same area, and I'm just going to stamp right over top. And this is the great thing about having it inside of the MISTI of that Wreath Builder, is that I'm able to add a little bit of shading and dimension to all these images. So again, just rolling my ink pad onto the bottom of that image to add a little bit of shading and dimension. You'll see me kind of do that all throughout. I love to do that just to give a little bit more dimension and depth to the card. So I've added down another image flower using traffic cone, and then I'm going to move into the leaf images. So I'm just going to stamp these all down, and you can see there I tested that out and I didn't really quite love it. So I'm just going to do 4 images here. I tend to, if the image hangs too much off the card and looks a little bit weird, I tend to skip it. So I just did 4 of the rotations on this one to hit all of those yellow flowers. And again, I did a little bit of blending and shading. The first color was Overzealous and the second color was Later Gator. Now with this next image, this is one of the larger leaf images, and here I'm going to stamp it down using some Later Gator ink. And I think I actually ended up doing this twice. So if you want it to be a little bit darker than your other image, a great thing about these dye inks is that they layer on top of each other and each layer gets a little bit darker. So if I stamp this twice in the MISTI, I'm going to get a little bit of darker color, which I really like. Okay, so after I'm done with that, you can see my image kind of building up here. I've added one more leaf, and then I'm going to use this Bestest Friend stamp set. I'm going to use that little girl image right from the top there, and this is just a little small one that I can fit right into that circle there. So you can see me kind of just place that image down. I'm glad we're still in the MISTI here, because then I can line it up really nicely inside of that circle and stamp it down using some black Archival ink. Then the cool part about this is I'm able to go in there and color this in. So I'm going to use some colors that I used in the images already to kind of coordinate the little girl with some of those flowers that we had already stamped. So for this, I'm just going to use my Chameleon color pencils. I really like these because they have 2 tones on each end of the pencil. So when you're done using the lightest color, you can then flip the pencil and go in with a darker color, which I really like. I think is really clever, and you have lots of colors for a little amount of pencils. So they're great for going on the go as well. So you can see here, I just flipped that and I'm coloring in some darker lines for hair, and the color perfectly coordinates. So there's no guesswork about which color to grab next, which I really like. Then I'm going in with her skin tone as well, and I'll do a little bit of shading in there as well with the other side of the pencil. I like how super easy these are to use rather than Copic markers, which can be a little bit confusing sometimes for me. So I just like to bring in my colored pencils every once in a while and start coloring, as they're super simple and kind of mindless to use. So then here is how that looks once I'm done. It's really quite simple, but I love the effect and how it kind of matches some of those colors that we had used on the stamping. Now to finish this off, I added some little clear iridescent gems to the card. I also added the sentiment from the Bestest Friend stamp set that says, "Happy birthday, thanks for being the bestest friend ever." And that finishes off this card, which I really like how it looks. Now on to the next one, I'm going to use the Dudes 2 stamp set. If you haven't seen this set before, there's 3 different bodies and 3 different heads, so you can kind of customize your image to however you want it to look for your recipient, or if you want it to look like you as you're making the card. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp this down using jet black archival ink. I'm stamping the body, this one is hanging off the edge of the card, and then I'm also going to stamp the head down. And I think I'm using watercolor cardstock, so it takes a little bit more pressure to stamp down. Now with the head, you just want to kind of look underneath it, get right over top of it, and make sure it's lined up that way with the neck, and it's pretty easy to stamp down and get it perfect. So once I'm done with that, I had actually cut out that image, and I cut out the little envelope from the stamp set as well. We're going to use this to create the wreath right around. So I put that envelope kind of towards the middle of the cardstock, and you need it to be in the middle in order for this to work really nicely. Then I've taken one of the images from another Wreath Builder set. I'll have it linked down below. It's a really cool one with lots of mandala and some cool geometric designs in it. And here I'm going to create a little rainbow circle of those stars. So you've seen me as I'm using the wreath. I'm using all 8 of the images here. And what I like about this is the stars go right next to each other, so it creates a really cool looking image. And you can see with my inks, which I really love, they don't stain your stamps or anything like that. So if you're using the Simon Hurley Create inks, you can just wipe it off with a water rag right in between, and then it's super easy to switch off to the next color with no contamination, which I love. So I'm just stamping all around using basically all of the ink colors from the Simon Hurley Create collection, well, not all of them, but almost all of them, to create this fun little rainbow looking wreath. And this is just the start of it. I lined up, as you can see, I had the dude on there and the envelope to make sure that I'm creating the wreath right around the envelope image, and then I just had pulled that off to make sure that I don't get any stamping on top of it. But this is a really fun way to get a wreath built around an image if you want to kind of highlight the image on your card, which I think is super fun. So I'm just going in here, here is clear skies, and then I'm going to use triple berry to finish it all off. And then you'll see kind of we'll build this wreath up as we go. You could totally leave it here. I really love how this looks. It's super simple and easy, but I wanted to create the colorful wreath a little bit bigger so that it highlights the image more. So I've just lined my next image up in there. I'm using this little heart image, and I've kind of lined it up in between each of the stars, so right where that point meets. And it's super easy to line some of these geometric images up to get a really fun looking wreath in the end. So again, I'm doing the same thing as I continue doing, and I'm using that 4" by 5 1/4" cardstock again, just lining up that one edge and then leaving the other edge kind of hanging out, and that's totally fine to do. It just creates a little bit of an area where I can add a sentiment at the bottom. So it kind of creates a little bit of a bigger card, and you're not limited to squares then, which I really like. Now I absolutely love how this is coming along. It's super simple to create these beautiful looking wreaths, and also now I'm super excited to have the Wreath Builder set in my collection, because now that I have these tools that I can use, I can incorporate them with any stamp set that I have in my collection. So this Wreath Builder can create wreaths with any images, so it kind of just puts a stretch on all my supplies, which I absolutely love. Of course, you could use some of these fun Wreath Builder sets, which I love because they have those geometric designs that are sized perfectly, but it is going to work with whatever stamp set you have, which I love the versatility of that, and I will definitely be using this a lot more often on cards. So I'm just finishing off with some mandala images. These ones are super cute and kind of hand drawn, which I absolutely love. And then I'm adding a little diamond in between those images, and that's going to finish off my wreath. I love this colorful looking wreath, and I love how big it's gotten. It's going to highlight that envelope image so perfectly. You can see there, I almost stamped on top of the green with the blue there. But make sure that it's nice and flipped before you press it down and stamp. So then I'm going in with the triple berry ink, and that finishes off this wreath. So then all I'm going to do is add some coloring. I've got my dude here, and I'm using some of these re-inker brushes. I'll leave a link in the top right corner right now where you can click to see how to create these kind of re-inker markers. They're basically like my inks in a liquid form, so instead of having to smoosh them out on the desk, I can take these anywhere and color them in, and they give a super solid and vibrant looking color, which I absolutely love. So I'm just going in, and you can always mix colors as well. So I'm mixing some of my Over the Moon color and some Gur to get a nice skin tone there as well. So once I'm done with that, I'm going to then move on to stamping down my sentiment. I've used the I Made You a Card from that same Dudes 2 stamp set there, and it's always good to stamp your sentiment down in the MISTI, because I can always restamp it in case if I didn't stamp perfectly the first time. I used Clear Skies ink for that, and then I'm going to go right above it with the larger dude image, and I'm going to stamp this down using some jet black Archival ink. And again, just making sure that I do that in the MISTI in case I make any mistakes with stamping. We don't want to ruin the whole card right now. So then I put that together onto a card base with that dude and the envelope right in the center of that wreath, and I absolutely love how it turned out. I love using mine and Gina's images together to create this fun and colorful card. Alright, I really hope you guys enjoyed seeing those cards as well as showing that fun wreath builder. It really does some cool things with geometric designs on your backgrounds and creates some really awesome patterns. If you enjoyed today's video, please give it a big thumbs up. Be sure to hit that subscribe button down below to never miss another video like this one from me. And also be sure to leave a comment down below letting me know which card was your favorite from today's video. And if you have any questions or comments, I always really enjoy chatting with you guys down there. I hope you guys will have a wonderful day, and I'll see you all very soon for another card making and crafting video. Bye guys!